Now to part two of our in-depth interview with Jessica Vega Pederson. She's the chair of the Multnomah County Board, which runs the county. She has enormous power, which is why you should care about what she has to say on big topics like homelessness. Despite $1 billion being spent over the last 7 or 8 years on homelessness in the greater Portland area, the problem in our area is worse than ever. And the new chair is pushing for something that has been missing in the county, data that can show whether the programs are working.
Yeah, that's absolutely right. So one of the first things I did in coming in as chair is setting up a data systems task force, and I did this in partnership with Commissioner Myron. And this is looking at, what data are we gathering in? What data is it most important for us to be tracking in terms of measuring our success and outcomes? And how can we be transparent and accountable to the public about that data? So the first part of that data systems task force was really looking at what are those 10 key performance indicators that we want to make sure are available on the Multnomah County's Joint Office website that's available to the public. And so we spent some time talking, and there were folks from the city, there were folks from the Joint Office, people who are really experts in data systems and data management who are a part of this group, as well as providers. And so we came up with those. Now this next phase that we're going into with that task force is really looking at more of the systemic look at our data, how data is working together, what other data efforts are happening. So the state is doing something. We also have partners in our healthcare field who are interested in being a part of the solution in terms of using the data that we have around people who are in crisis, who are living outside unsheltered, to get the best targeted investments and outreach happening to them to get them on the path that they need.
It is because, I may be wrong on this, but my impression is that sometimes in the system, when people come across an individual, it often feels like it's the very first time they've met that individual, even though that person may have had 20 different encounters with a parole officer or a nurse at the hospital or whatever. But it was so disjointed that there was no way to see, oh, we know what's happening with this person.
Yeah, that's exactly right. We know that there are people who are going back and forth between living unsheltered, between being in our jails, being in our emergency rooms, right? And so how do you make those connections? There's work going on in the Joint Office, the program Fuse, that's looking at exactly that issue, and that was started, something that Ed Blackburn had really championed for the last several years. The other piece of it is just the backbone of the data system that the federal government requires us to use, HUD requires us to use, is called HMIS, the HMIS system. So for a long time, that was administrated by the City of Portland and the Portland Housing Bureau. We just recently, in the past month or so, switched the administration to the Joint Office of Homeless Services. So from there, we are now able to have more control about that system itself and the kind of software system that is the front piece of it that people use to actually access that system. And I think there's a lot of things that we can do to make sure that the data that is being gathered, the data that is being tracked is done in a very user-friendly way, so people are more likely to use and actually enter the data.
Now, I don't know about you, but I have to say I was surprised to learn that there is no centralized system for tracking people who are homeless in our area. Instead, it sort of sounds like there's multiple silos and multiple agencies dealing with the same person, but not aware of each other, not sharing information on that person in a way that can help them get off the street. Hopefully, this new data push and more control on gathering and tracking will lead to accountability and results. I also asked the chair about the mass homeless camps and daytime camping ban that the City of Portland is about to put in place next month. What do you think of the mayor's plan for the big tents and banning the camping?
So I will say, in terms of the big campsites and the task sites, I believe they're calling them, the county wants to be a partner in that. In fact, we're very much encouraging. That. Yeah, we encourage. I mean, I'm supportive of the fact that we need to have safe places for people to go, and we need it to be as humane and safe and secure as possible. So one of the things that we've done is, with some of the dollars that came through the state, was to help purchase pods for the first task site. we have in what I've proposed in terms of using some of our underspending is another $4.5 million to invest in additional pods for those sites. So we really want it to be not just tents, because that's really hard. If we have severe weather, people who are in tents are without heating and cooling are going to need just as much response as somebody who's living in an unsheltered place in a tent, right? So it was really following Multnomah County values to make this kind of capital investment there. And so I was really happy to be able to do that with the initial dollars, and then we're looking, like I said, what's proposed to do for some of the other sites as well.
Okay, is the camping ban a good idea?
You know, I do have concerns about this camping ban, and I think Commissioner Rubio was really on target when she voted against it. But the words that she said that really resonated me were the fact that, you know, it's hard to make something, to ban something before you have all of the services in place to really respond to what the impact of that might be. I've already had conversations internally and directed my staff to start looking at what are the potential impacts to this ban on our day shelter systems, on our libraries, on our partners that are providing, day shelters, and all of those types of impacts, because if people aren't able to stay where they normally have, what's going to be happening to the rest of the system, right? So that's a really big concern I have. And we're still building up our shelter system, our connections for people into housing. And so that urgent work needs to continue even more.
And that made me curious, made me wonder what our current shelter system looks like in Multnomah County. So let's take a look. According to the Joint Office of Homeless Services, Multnomah County has 1,488 shelter beds and 1,368 were used, leaving 120 open. That's roughly a 92% utilization rate. But the chair also conceded that many shelters cut their capacity in half during COVID, and not all of them are back up to using 100% of their shelter beds. So there are more available beds than it sounds. Also, that number does not include programs that offer people vouchers, or domestic violence shelters, or shelters not funded by public money, or other shelters which just refuse to enter their data into the Homeless Management Information System. In addition to all that, many who are living outside just don't want to be in a shelter. Don't take my word for it. In 2017, KGW News surveyed 100 people living in tents in Portland and found 89% would rather stay in a tent than in a shelter. So there's that.